Let's go ahead and jump right in now in modeling the reality from different perspectives. And I use this image here because when we talk about models, we're talking about a representation of reality from different perspectives that helps us understand that reality and actually interact with it. There's a lot of confusion over organizational change models. For example, and this is a real example that comes from a class on organizational change that I've taught in the past. The designer for the class built in a case study and asked the student to, quote, apply one of the following change models to the case. And 3 models were presented: the Kotter, the Lewin, and the appreciative inquiry model. This gives the impression that all 3 models are in the same category with the same purpose, but in reality, they're very different. The Kotter model is really a project management methodology for managing a planned change initiative. The Lewin model is for how individuals change, not the corporation, but individuals within the corporation or the organization. And as the individuals change, so therefore there's a cumulative impact, but it's very different than managing the change initiative. And the third, appreciative inquiry, is really an organization development discovery tool that is useful in the diagnostics and the sense making that is required for organizational change. This simple exercise then is asking students to select 3 very different models, and reality, all 3 can be used at different places in the change process. This is why change models sometimes cause confusion, because we're mixing the models without focusing on the purpose. So let's talk about change models. A model is really 2 things: what is being modeled and how it is being modeled. This is simply a representation of something that is in reality around us. We use the model to simplify our thinking so that we have a common understanding and we can talk among ourselves, but also choose a model that then leads from a theory into a practice. There's an implied meaning behind the model of why it was developed and how that model is to be used. First, let's talk then about the types of models that will be needed, the purpose, and then later we're going to be talking about which model would be appropriate to that need, how the models are classified by purpose. This is the representation of the change processes or the actions that might be taken in a total overview of organizational change, from understanding the change to tracking the change process. This is how I think about how you take the totality of organizational change, theory and practice, and somehow make some sense of how the different parts are interconnected and how you can study the different parts. Of the 8 different ways I can classify organizational change, there's actually 5 that employ different change models. So you can see there's a great variation then of types of change models and the purpose upon which those models are employed in the overall change orientation. So change models then. Let's not confuse the different types of change, and we're going to be going through this repeatedly. We're going to be talking about the change project methodology. These are the types of models to manage a large change initiative. We're also then going to be talking about diagnostic models. These help identify the root problems in the organization and lead to a prescriptive response or solution. We're going to be talking about individual change models, how people change, and as people change, organizations collectively change. There's resistance change models, the resistance and phases and transitions that people go through when they first encounter change, to go to the surprise, to the compliance, to the commitment levels. There's also types of change. These are the root change processes that are underway, oftentimes without us even thinking about it, other times purposefully employed by us. So these are the different change models. The change project methodology. There's multiple courses that I teach focusing on these models, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this course there. Same with the diagnostic models. Many models there, and that's really a separate area of study. Individual change models, there's really two primary models there, and I treat them separately in other courses. Similarly, the different transition models for resistance are handled in change resistance management course. So here I'm going to be talking about the broader perspective of the different change models and what is really involved in each of these different models, and spend a little bit of time in the types of change that really cuts across all change initiatives. Think then of linked models, each with a different purpose. So when you approach a change initiative, it's not selecting one model, it's really selecting different models that work together for a common initiative, each serving a different change purpose. So change tools then. These are part of the practitioner's tool bag. The project methodology, the diagnostics, the individual change processes, and the resistance. We also have change classification. How a change initiative or a change process changes over time. It doesn't happen all at once. Things happen, and we need to think oftentimes through what needs to be put in place along that timeline. This gets into the drivers of understanding the approach that is in place and what is needed. Again, back to purpose. We're also going to be talking in depth about the 4 core change processes. These are interconnected processes that can be thought about from different perspectives and used for different purposes again. The change processes at the core level really drive the change classification, how things change over time, and the approach that is being needed. Also, as the change classification and the different things that happen over time, we will be using different change tools in our change initiatives. So again, this is different perspectives of the model, but they're all interconnected. Think of these as being stacked models that are also nested within each other. Think then that you've got the practitioners in multiple courses. The change series here gets into the deeper understanding, but the main focus is going to be on the visual, the time-oriented change impact that we all go through with different change initiatives. What change models have you had experience with? What is the purpose? And are you using the right models for each purpose?